All right, Barb, I'll start the video and then it'll go to you.
Sounds good.
Oops. I can't see my tabs up there. Here we go. United Way of Santa Fe County has a new name.
Welcome to the kickoff weekend for Growing Up New Mexico, and welcome to this event called New Work at the Early Learning Center at Kaune with Jen Salinas, the director at Kaune. Every child is born into this world ready to learn, and at Growing Up New Mexico, we've acted on this opportunity with resources that tap into a child's innate curiosity and build emotional resiliency. We are committed to building a scaffolding of opportunities that will sustain emotional and educational development over a lifetime. Jen, can we start our discussion today by having you describe the Early Learning Center's approach to education?
Barb, hi everybody, nice to be here. I would love to talk about what we do at the school. I love bragging about our team here and what we do. I'll share about what our approach is to education, what we believe here. First and foremost, this team, we're driven by the fact that children just have a natural desire to learn. We can all see this from the very beginning. We see babies attuning closely into their caregivers' faces. They're reaching out to grab their toes and exploring objects with their mouths. From the very beginning, kids just want to learn and explore. They're curious about their world. They want to know how it works. As educators at the Early Learning Center, we think our role is to nurture that curiosity, to offer those children new tools and skills so that then the child can make it possible for them to reach their own goals that they already have set for themselves. For instance, just some examples, a child that's interested in making new friends, making connections with their peers, we as educators can help support that skill and that interest by teaching them about feelings, giving them information on facial cues to look out for that, helping support them on negotiation and conflict resolution skills, and even giving them the opportunity to learn about writing and different symbols so then they can communicate with their friends or share messages with them. Another child that comes into our center might be interested in learning just about bugs and the creatures in our world. And we can help them build on that interest by giving them magnifying glasses, observation sheets, doing research with books. It's all about finding ways that we can encourage and deepen their own desire to learn, and then giving them some really helpful tools and skills along the way to build on that. So at the centers, we were trying to find a curriculum that we felt really aligned with those beliefs about building on children's natural interests. We found our way to the Reggio Emilia, so that's kind of our basis at the center. That approach to education, it uses children's natural curiosity as a launching point for different classroom projects. The projects, they can last anywhere from 1 day to even a full year, and they develop as a collaboration between the educators and the children. Teachers will pose a provocation, which can be an activity or an exploration that they want to bring to the children. And those, they plan those based on the interest that they've observed from children in the classroom. So going back to, are they interested in making connections with their peers? Do they want to learn about creatures around them? Teachers will plan a provocation to build on that. They bring that activity to the children in the classroom. They observe what the children, how they respond to that activity. They document their explorations with that activity. And then teachers review that documentation and plan a follow-up activity. So this cycle just continues until the project reaches an end or evolves into a new topic, which is pretty common as well. Going back and forth between posing a provocation and then watching the children, how they respond to that, and going back and forth. So it's really about that cooperation that happens between child and teacher. This, of course, is a pretty simplistic breakdown of the Reggio Emilia approach. It's a really rich, complex approach. And as a team, we're continuing to learn about the approach every year. We do work together here as the team. We read articles and books together to keep learning a bit more about it. But one of the other components about Reggio Emilia that really does speak to us is its focus on seeing every child and every family for the unique strengths and the experiences that they bring with them to the center. And so for us, we try and also really respect and encourage them to share their culture, their tradition, and their beliefs with us. And this guides just our general policy, our practices at the center, and is also the reason why we include dual language as part of our programming here at the school.
That's so fascinating to me. I mean, I watched No Small Matter for the second time last night, and I'm just, I'm constantly reminded about what happens in the first 3 years as far as brain development and how critical this time frame is. I so miss the couple of times I've been able to come into Kaune and see the work up on the bulletin boards and what you're doing there. I'm waiting for the pandemic to pass so that I will have that opportunity again. You just mentioned dual language. I'd love for you to talk to us more about the dual language program at Kaune.
Yeah, thanks. That is a really wonderful documentary to watch. It's really amazing, and I hope everybody gets a chance to see that. And yes, let me share a little bit more about our dual language program. We have always been a bilingual program since the very beginning, as we've been around for 13, 14 years as preschool centers. But the last couple of years, we have really focused on bringing the dual language program in a more focused way to our center. It still looks a little bit different in each of our classrooms, just the way that we try and build on each child and family's strengths, as I was just talking about. We really also think that's important for our classrooms and for our teachers. We want to build on each classroom teacher and the teaching pairs in each classroom, the strengths that they bring, their skills. And we don't think that the dual language program is a one-size-fits-all. It has to really change to meet the teachers, the children in that classroom. So each teaching team has kind of found their own rhythm of what that looks like for them. And it adapts every year depending on the children that they're working on. And their level of engagement with the different languages or their level of experience previously with the other language. So it changes a little bit every year. And like I said, looks a little bit different. But generally speaking, and overall, our goal is we want to ensure that children are hearing both languages throughout the day. And more importantly, we want to make sure that they feel comfortable speaking their own native language and that they're also really comfortable hearing other people speak their native language, right? That we can share that and everybody's comfortable speaking their native language, and that being a part of our communities, that we have a lot of different languages in our space. And, of course, there's sometimes a barrier there between we primarily speak English and Spanish as our dual language program, but we do have other languages that our families bring into the center, and we build on that as well. But to help with some of that barrier that happens, which is often English and Spanish, our teachers will incorporate a lot of different strategies in the classrooms. So some of our teachers are learning sign language themselves or have at least learned some basic sign language, and they pass that on to the children so that they can use some of those skills to communicate with one another, even across a language barrier. And we also work really hard to teach the children important phrases in both languages. So things like, please stop, I don't like that. Do you want to play with me? Can I be your friend? We'll teach the children and practice these phrases in both English and Spanish throughout the day, so children can have those skills and those tools to start talking and communicating with one another despite their native language. And of course, just more generally, teachers are bringing in both languages. They're using music and books, rhymes, and just conversation throughout the day. We feel like that's really important and that's really meaningful. Is to just talk to the children in English and Spanish throughout the day as they're playing at their centers. They're moving from the classroom to the playground. Teachers are introducing both languages and moving between the two to support children in picking up those languages. We also think a dual language program really needs to go beyond just language. So we also practice the ideals of the anti-bias curriculum. And that curriculum strives to build a safe place for all children and their families, no matter what their gender, their race, any identifier that makes them who they are. We welcome that into our community, and we want to create a safe space for that in our community. We want children to be proud of who they are, who their family is. And again, going back to that language piece, we think it's really important that our children learn to not tolerate, but celebrate the differences in those people around us and in our community. So our teachers work with children to recognize when there's been unfair treatment of others and to feel strong and powerful enough in themselves to stand up against that unfairness. You'll actually have a chance to hear a little bit more about that in a video later. One of our teachers will share one of the projects that she's been really delving into this with her children. So you'll have a chance to get a little peek into that too.
Great. Thank you so much. It's funny, as you were speaking, I mean, the value of the dual language program, personal experience, just kids, they have that ability at that young age to absorb, multi-languages. We lose that, as we get older. And, I've lived in a lot of places, and I remember, I won't say where this was, but that it was discouraged to speak other than English in schools that I've been involved in. And I'm thinking, what a mistake that's been. And it just, I'm so proud to be part of this organization and the fact that you promote the dual language and how important that is. Thank you. It's another topic which is on our mind all the time. It's certainly been a difficult year for early childhood programs across the country because of the pandemic. So I'd love to have you talk a little bit about what's been going on this year, at the Early Learning Center via COVID.
Yeah, it definitely has been an interesting and challenging year. And our team consistently says how thankful they are that we're all here together and that we're getting through it together. And we hear that from our families as well. Since March, it kind of all started to unravel here within the States. But since then, there's only been about 2 months where we haven't been providing some sort of in-person care in some way. That's really looked different throughout these past 11 months. Depending on what the current current health regulations and the current situation here in our particular county, in our city, we've kind of shifted things a little bit. So back in March, like I said, when this all started, we opened up additional classrooms at our center. So we opened up from infant care all the way to school age, and we were providing care for essential workers in the city. Then in the summer, we shifted over and we opened up to our community for a summer jumpstart program that was offered. So this was offered to all 5-year-olds that were getting ready to enter into kindergarten in fall of 2020. So the focus there was to help support children in getting prepared for kindergarten, since a lot of children probably missed some of that prep that they might have gotten in preschool, those last few months, those last critical months, and helping them transition to kindergarten. So we opened that up to all members of our community. We also know that children were struggling with some stress and anxiety, as we all were, and children are feeling that. So we worked really hard during that program to support children in feeling ready to make that jump back into the public school system and into kindergarten. And then in August, we opened back up pretty much to our regular operations. our usual pre-K and early pre-K program, which is 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. But we did reduce the number of children in all of our classrooms to make sure that it felt very safe for everybody. So since August, we've been serving between 60 and 70 families. And of course, during that whole time, we're following really strict guidelines to make all the health and safety guidelines, just making sure that everyone in our community, our staff, our children, all of our families, anyone that's interacting here within our Early Learning Center community, making sure that we're all as safe as we possibly can be during this time. And I can kind of break down some of what those guidelines and practices have been for us and how we've really changed and adapted to meet this time. One of the big things we did, like I mentioned, we do have reduced numbers in our classrooms. So we don't have any more than 10 to 12 children in a classroom at a time. All children and staff, of course, are wearing masks throughout the day. The only time that they don't is during meals and when the children are napping, but otherwise our children are wearing masks. And I can tell you the children have adapted to that so amazingly well from day one. They came in here wearing their masks, not a problem. They're doing really well with that change. Then, of course, there's the ventilation to consider. So we are spending a lot more time outdoors with our kids, which they are absolutely loving. They love to be outside. We're working to build up some outdoor learning spaces that have a little bit more built up with some different experiences for them out there. We also bought some outdoor heaters so that we could spend time out there even in the winter and the cold. We bought some air purifiers for the classrooms to make sure that we get the airflow going in there and keeping things as safe as we can. Of course, our staff has increased their sanitation. I can tell you how many times I walk in the classroom and teachers are busily cleaning, disinfecting all the toys, all the materials. We're doing it throughout the school and the center as well, just making sure we keep everything as safe and clean as possible. And then one of the things we're also doing is just limiting the number of people in the building. As you mentioned before, you haven't been able to come visit us in a while. This has been one of the hardest things for us at the center. Only the children and the staff basically come into the school. Families are dropping off outside. We do a health screening with the children before they can come into the building. So that's been really hard for us. We are big on community. We're big on connections with our families. And so not being able to have the same sort of connection with them as we have in the past has been tough. But we've had to find creative ways to work with them, to meet with them, to chat with them, and just meet the general community goals. We've just found some different ways to do that.
Yeah, it's funny. I think kids would be a great example to a lot of adults that do not know how to wear masks. I think they would be our poster children, because I love the fact that they don't mind that. That's great. You just, I was just thinking my next question was, talk to us a little bit more about these creative ways that you've helped meet the needs of your children and the families, this last year or in general. I'd love to hear you speak about that.
Yeah. Well, I think like everybody else, technology's become a pretty big part of our school here and now. And the nice thing is that some of these new things we're doing at the school are going to be long-lasting positive effects, new things that we can do, and new tools that we can bring into our school. So we're really looking forward to it's going to continue past this. So we're using a lot of technology. We used to do home visits every year before the school started to help children transition into our school. We couldn't do those in person this year. That means we go and we visit our families at their home, but we did still believe that was incredibly important. And we wanted to make sure that children and families got to have some sort of face-to-face interaction with their classroom teachers before the first day. So our teachers did that all virtually and made sure that they got to meet with the families according to their schedule, what worked for them. But they got to talk to the children, talk to the families through a video conference, just to get to know them before they started. So we wanted to get off on the right foot there. We also typically have a welcome night at our center where we bring in all the families, help them get oriented and used to what our center looks like. Again, couldn't really do that, but instead we made some orientation videos for our families, talking to them. We showed them what the drop-off process was going to be like, talked a little bit more about the sanitation procedure, what that all looked like, the schedule, described that to them, and also shared photos of the classroom, because I think that's one of the things that both children and families really needed to see is, what is it going to be like in the center? How is that space going to be? And for families and children that just needed a little bit extra, we did make appointments with them individually to, of course, let them come in. Some of those children just need that extra little support before they come in. So we made sure and worked with our families individually to meet those needs. We also, going back to technology, we also have an app that we use to communicate with our families. We've used it in the past as well, but we really stepped it up this year with using that. It's a great way to communicate with our families and get a message out to everybody. Just blast out a message and make sure that everybody gets it. But it's also a really wonderful way for the teachers to share photos of what's going on in the classroom. So again, teachers use this in the past, but this year they're making sure to share photos at least 1 to 3 times throughout the week with families to kind of help meet that gap where we would have checked in with families on a daily basis on what's going on in the classroom, what their child is doing here. And this hopefully provides a little bit of that, lets them see their child playing throughout the day, what they're using, the materials they're using, and teachers will share a little blurb about what's going on in those photos as well. So families have been really appreciative of that. Another thing that we used to do was our coffee chats, and we'd invite families into our center every month to meet with the teacher, talk about the curriculum, what's going on, what activities are being planned. So we replaced that with a monthly group text message based on our family's feedback and schedule. They seem to prefer something like that where they can all jump in on their own schedule and what works for them. Teachers will share pictures or refer back to what they shared on Brightwheel. And then they ask questions to get the families talking to one another to build that community still. How have you seen your children exploring these same concepts at home? What have they shared with you? What questions do you have? And so we're, having the families and the teachers engage in that way regularly, at least once a month as a whole group. And then, of course, there have been some times when we haven't been providing in-person learning to all of our families. And so we have done a couple of remote learning activities. Our teachers have done some really wonderful videos that we have on YouTube, reading stories, puppet shows, singing songs. It's been really amazing to see their creativity with all of that and how they're reaching out. But through all of that, we also felt like it was incredibly important to maintain those one-on-one relationships with our children and our families. So we really focused on making sure that our teachers were meeting once a week with every child through a video chat and every family and either a phone or video, whatever they're more comfortable with. But the teachers said, that was just their absolute favorite during remote learning. The children really loved that. It maintained those relationships we worked so hard to build and just help support the children. So when they were coming back after even taking a break for a couple of weeks of remote learning, there still was that connection, that ability to jump back into what we did. And then we also so we've done a lot of different things throughout this time, of course. We also provided care packages at one point to our families. So we sent home different classroom materials, journals, markers, rulers, different things like that, seed packets with some activity ideas of what to do. And one of the things that families have really appreciated and we've been very happy to do, and thanks to the Food Depot and Kids Kitchen, we've been able to provide food boxes to our families once a week. So a lot of our families utilize this service when they're here. They come to pick up their child. We load a box up of fresh produce and a bag of non-perishables in their car. And, we've just heard from so many of our families how incredibly helpful that is for them to just have a little bit of support. So that's something we've been really happy that we're able to do as well.
I have to put in a plug for Mr. C reading to his daughter, one of the videos that I enjoyed so much. And, it's funny with this year. I mean, we all miss the touch, the physical contact, but thank goodness this has happened in an age of technology where we have the ability to do what we've been able to do. I was thinking if this pandemic had happened 20 years ago, it would have been a lot different, but we have incredible technology out there. Yeah, but thank you for sharing that. I love the creativity of the staff and what you've been able to do, and of course the food distribution is near and dear to my heart. As you know, my husband's on the board of the Food Depot, so it's great, the collaboration between our two organizations. Anyway, we are going to see a video fairly soon, and I would love for you to kind of share with us what we're about to see.
So I feel incredibly proud to be a part of this community, of this team here. I hear it from our families so often too. This team works so hard, is really passionate about the work they do. It comes to work no matter what the world looks like outside. They come here, they're smiling, they're with the kids. Their dedication and passion to what we do is really incredible. So I wanted them to share that. I also think, as I'm talking about all these different things that we've done at the center and what's changed and what it looks like now, I think one of the things that gets lost in all of that is how much hasn't changed. There's still, if you were to walk into our classrooms right now, you'd still see so much learning and joy and happiness and the kids smiling and the teachers connecting with the children. All of that is still happening. And so we thought one of the best ways to help show that was to put together a video, and you'll hear our teachers and some of our families sharing about what this time has been like for them, what our classrooms look like. It'll just give you a little bit more of an insight and a view into our classrooms. So I hope everyone really enjoys seeing that and getting to take a peek in our school.
Great, wonderful. So Abby, I think you're gonna put on the video and then come back afterwards. See you all soon.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Salinas. I'm the director at the Early Learning Center at Kaune, a program brought to you by Growing Up New Mexico. I've had the pleasure of working with this organization and this amazing group of people for over 10 years. As I thought about what I wanted to share with all of you about our program here, I realized who better to speak to what we do than members of this community. I hope that you enjoy listening to our educators and our families as they share a little bit more about what we do here at the Early Learning Center at Kaune.
Hi there, my name is Rosalinda. I am creating this video because I want to share my experience within the program and experience during our New World epidemic of COVID-19. I believe as a center, we have created and have implemented the most important health and safety measures, ensuring that each one of us is safe, ensuring that each one of our staff members is safe, ensuring that each one of our family members and our children within the center are safe. During this time of COVID, we have provided in-class sessions, creative environments that are predictable, that are flexible, that are responsive for our children. We have created remote learning opportunities in which we had authentic interactions, genuine and responsive. We were all there for each other.
Hola, mi nombre es Ana Rosa y me gusta trabajar para Growing Up New Mexico porque tiene gran oportunidad de crecer como persona y profesional. Trabajar con niños es mi pasión. Aprendo cada día algo diferente de ellos. Todos piensan que nosotros somos los maestros, pero en realidad ellos son los maestros. Ser profesora cambia la vida. Todo lo que se les enseña cambia su forma de pensar y actuar. Lo mejor es que estás ahí para presenciar su crecimiento a medida que continúan aprendiendo. Es un placer trabajar con un grupo de maestras tan profesionales, unidas y competitivas. Nuestra jefa, no se diga, Jen es genial. Dirige muy bien su equipo. Gracias.
Hi, I just wanted to thank the staff at the Early Learning Center for everything that they've done during this pandemic, from providing in-classroom classes online and also now providing the meals for our children. I really appreciate everything that you do and are grateful for you. Thank you so much.
Early childhood education is very important because it's an essential part of a child's development. Besides the academic learning, children develop a strong foundation for cognitive and social development that will help them build a successful future. Early childhood education sometimes can be taken for granted and seen as kids just going to school to play, when in reality that play teaches them more than you can imagine. When building blocks, children learn to count, classify, create patterns, and develop mathematical skills. When children play with each other, they learn to listen, to take turns, taking another person's perspective, and develop sympathy. They learn to express their feelings and share ideas, among many other skills, all necessary to become successful adults.
What's your favorite toy at the Early Learning Center?
The orange dinosaur with a bumpy head.
Mi área de aprendizaje preferida en el salón de clases es el área dramática, porque es considerada parte integral del desarrollo durante la primera infancia, según los expertos, ya que elimina los límites de la realidad y abre puertas hacia la imaginación mientras los niños aprenden acerca del mundo que los rodea. Otro de los beneficios de esta área es el desarrollo del lenguaje expresivo. Esto sucede mientras los niños mantienen una conversación, aprenden a escuchar y comparten sus ideas desde la perspectiva del personaje que están interpretando. De la misma manera, el área dramática ayuda a los niños a reconocer y regular sus emociones, negociar y tomar turnos mientras incrementan sus habilidades sociales, matemáticas y de alfabetización. Asimismo, el área dramática, además de ayudar a los niños en sus habilidades de aprendizaje, les ayuda a descubrir sus miedos, intereses e incluso las áreas en las que ellos necesitan más estimulación.
My favorite thing about school is playing bag with my friends.
Mi material favorito en clase son los materiales reciclados. ¿Por qué? Porque de esa manera los niños expanden sus horizontes. ¿De qué manera han de pensar ustedes? Pues con su imaginación, ya que ellos a través de todos esos materiales que a lo mejor nosotros podemos pensar que es basura, ellos construyen y ellos crean. Y de esa manera ellos imaginan cosas que a lo mejor nosotros como adultos no podríamos imaginar hacerlas o tal vez no podríamos crearlas.
The Early Learning Center at Kaune has been a huge help to our family this year. They've offered support by giving us free full-time childcare for my younger daughter. It's allowed me to continue working part-time and also given me the opportunity to homeschool my older daughter. My daughter loves to go to school. She talks about her friends. She talks about all the fun things that she does there, and I feel like it is an extremely safe place for her to be when she's not at home.
The Frios family, and without the Early Learning Center, we would not have been able to keep our business going during the pandemic. The Early Learning Center has helped us care for a meal so that we could continue to do our work and keep our business open.
I really appreciate the Early Learning Center for just communicating with us, being so clear during the pandemic, and really making us feel comfortable and safe with the in-person school. I don't know how we would have done it without them. And staff has just been so responsive, so understanding, so transparent about everything, and it's really just allowed us to feel safe and comfortable, and it's a very family-like environment. So I look forward to dropping off and picking up, and it's been a great experience all around.
El aprendizaje con lenguaje dual es muy importante porque así los niños pueden tener muchas oportunidades durante su vida y tener éxito. Gracias.
Dual language learning is important because it allows children to connect to their culture. It is also important to be able to teach other children a different culture and a new language. Here in our center, we have seen children from Spain, Guatemala, El Salvador, Mexico, and many other countries, and it is rewarding for us to be able to communicate to the families in Spanish and to be able to provide resources for them in their language.
Hola, mi nombre es Evelyn Ordóñez, él es mi hijo Natanael Hernández. Realmente aprecio al Centro de Aprendizaje Temprano Kaune por la dedicación y el esmero con que realizan sus labores. Es digna de admirar. Durante la pandemia COVID-19, este centro nos ayudó con cajas de alimentos, asimismo con asesorías si necesitábamos ayuda económica o algunas otras cosas. A mi hijo Natanael le encanta ir a esta escuela. Agradezco enormemente la fortuna de contar con el apoyo del Centro de Aprendizaje Temprano Kaune. Muchas gracias por su esfuerzo.
To me, Reggio Emilia is an approach that acknowledges each student as a competent and capable individual.
I love my teachers because they're so sweet.
My favorite project that we did this year in the pink room was focused on emotions. We read the book The Color Monster and we discussed emotions like happiness, fear, anger, and it was really nice to see the kids making their feeling bottles and writing down their quotes about their emotions.
In our classroom over the last 2 years, our 3, 4, and now going on 5-year-old students have been following a study that we named The Colors of Us, after the first book that we read about skin color. This exploration was inspired after Miss Ana Rosa had made an observation that the children in the drama area were playing with the baby doll that had light brown skin and not with the baby doll that had dark brown skin. Ever since then, we've been looking at the differences and similarities in people. And through group and individual activities, the children have learned that people share the same skeletal structure, body functions, and feelings. The children have made comments and asked questions about how sometimes people are treated badly because of the color of skin they have. Through our discussions, they have shown concern and empathy, and they've made decisions to be the kind of people that will be accepting of everyone, no matter what color of skin they have, including the baby dolls.
Durante esta pandemia he aprendido a vivir un día a la vez. Esto ha sido significativo porque cada día es una nueva oportunidad para ejercer la aceptación, paciencia y tolerancia y darle vida al amor y a la paz. Y así de esta manera poder compartirlo a nuestro equipo de Growing Up New Mexico.
Wow, I am so proud of the work that you do there. That was great. Thank you, Jen. Yeah, I really want to thank you for sharing that with us today. At Growing Up in New Mexico, we have a scholarship fund that allows families to get high quality childcare and pre-K even when they can't afford it. We use up to $5,000 per child from the scholarship fund in order to provide high quality early education, and we are committed to equity and access for all children. I'd like you to please consider making a donation to our scholarship fund to keep the center full of children who need it the most. You can donate on the events page or from our website, which is growingupnm.org. And I know Abby's mentioned this, but I wanted to just reiterate that the Anderson Foundation has issued a challenge grant for to double our donations up to $15,000 this weekend. And the grant is specifically focused on the Early Learning Center at Kaune. So this has been incredible. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, Jen. And I just wanted to remind people that the next event will be discussing our home visiting programs, and we'll be starting that at 11 a.m. So take a little bit of a break. And Abby, did you want to mention anything else before we sign off?
No, Barb, that's great. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you at 11.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.